Yo, what's up, street dogs? There, Kim. All right, so some thoughts on why meat is good for you. All right, so first and foremost, why is meat demonized? So my basic thought is we tend to demonize meat because of moral and ethical reasons and, environmental reasons, bad for the planet, blah, blah. Now, I think from a moral and ethical or planetary reason, I don't disagree with people say, meat is bad for the planet and, stuff like that. And then if you decide to be vegetarian or vegan or not eat that much meat for moral and ethical purposes, no problemo, to each his own, right? So this is where though things get tricky. If you take away all the, moralizing, ethical, planet, blah, blah, I'm just kind of more interested from a purely physiological perspective. How bad is meat really for our body, our physical growth, and our human physiology? So I'm trying to take a more physiological approach and just more like objective or physical approach, or maybe a physics-based approach where my personal goal is, I have no idea if I'll die of a heart attack or whatever, and I have zero idea in terms of how long I'll live. But my personal life goal is to become as muscular as I can without steroids, HGH, weird stuff. I don't even take protein powder or, creatine or supplements no more. All I do is eat fatty meats and, kimchi and bitter herbs and greens and stuff like that. So, some thoughts. So first and foremost, typically, why do people say that meat and stuff is like that is bad for you? Typically, what people say is, oh, meat's bad for you because, you eat saturated fat, and saturated fat is only in meat. Fatty meats, cholesterol, blah, blah. Eating a lot of saturated fats, cholesterol is gonna cause plaque buildup in your arteries. The more you build up plaque in your arteries, the more likely you are to have a heart attack. This is generally the gist, and I think that's actually been falsified. Gary Taubes, good calories, bad calories, or why we get fat, stuff like that. And so and also one of the general misconceptions is if you eat fat, you will get fat. So, I've proven that's actually not the case. All I do is eat fatty meats, I don't eat carbs. I've essentially been quite religious about intermittent fasting for almost 3 years from now. I haven't eaten carbs, sugars, starches, even the good carbs for the last maybe 3 years, and actually I feel more happy and physically better than I did in the past. Nice. And actually even physiologically, and once again, I'm East Asian, I'm Korean American, and I don't think there's anything genetically, if anything, I'm probably genetically inferior to the average person. I have relatively small wrists, relatively small hands, whatever, yet I'm still able to deadlift 455 pounds. I'm quite strong, and my muscles are quite big right now, and I think I still keep, I'm still kind of getting the gains, which are good. So, essentially my regimen has been very simple: intermittent fasting, don't eat breakfast or lunch, typically the earliest I break my fast is like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, sometimes 7 or 8 o'clock. And when I break my fast, I just eat a shitload of meat, you know, fatty beef, fatty pork, fatty chicken, whatever it is. And I just eat as much meat as I can until I'm full. And as I'm eating my meat, in order to eat more meat, essentially what I do is I'll eat like, you know, bitter herbs like kale, collard greens, whatever, fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut, kind of like vinegary kind of stuff. I think it helps with digestion. So my personal goal is I want to eat 3 to 5 pounds of meat a day. And, you know, people's like, oh, you're gonna get a heart attack, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm still here. I think I'm okay. And, you know, obviously everything I'm saying in this video, this is just my opinion, my experiences. Don't do what I do. I just treat myself kind of a human experiment where I'm just kind of curious. Like, for me, I'm more interested in like gaining some sort of like more philosophical, empirical, objective truths rather than worrying so much about the politics of it, whatever. So typically whenever I meet people who are vegetarian or vegan or whatever, the thing I'm always curious about is, are you doing it for moral, ethical reasons? Are you doing it for health reasons or for both? Now, once again, I think if you do like vegetarian, veganism, whatever, for more unethical purposes, that is not something falsifiable. Like, everyone has a different code of ethics, and I think that's totally fine. Or also, like, you know, for planetary reasons, whatever. But whenever people say that being vegetarian or vegan is healthier than being an omnivore or a carnivore or meat eater or whatever, then I start to get highly suspicious. I'm like, okay, what do you mean healthier? Like, do you mean like you're gonna live longer? So like you're gonna live to be 90 years old instead of 70 years old? Or like, is it more like a physiological thing where, you know, you have a higher muscle mass or you have more energy throughout the day or something like that? So for me, I think probably the more empirical way to think about your health means wellness or strength, power. I think the best way to actually study your physiology is, or your health, is to just look at your body composition, right? So in terms of just like how much body fat you have, how much muscle mass you have, I think it's actually a much more empirical way to judge your healthiness than, you know, all these other tests which could totally be gamed. Like, you know, people test your LDL, HDL, blood lipids, blah blah, but I'm sure 300 years from now they're gonna be like, wow, we're testing LDL, HDL, and that was so hyper oversimplified. Because like, even I'm 32 right now, and I've always kind of been a diet, health, fitness nut ever since I was a fat kid. And I still remember like, I still remember back in the day, you know, they said saturated fat was bad for you, so I just ate super low fat everything. You know, they said, oh, throw away the yolks, blah blah. And then, you know, like carbs are the enemy. And the diet and nutrition science is always changing, but actually I think a better tool to study is like, see how the ancient Greeks ate. All they did was they feasted on like fatty cuts of ox and beef and stuff like that, and drank tons of wine. So I think it was actually funny, even in the Odyssey, you know, Odysseus's men only resort to eating fish when they're starving to death. So I think that shows some sort of hierarchy of food. And truth be told, like ethical reasons aside, if you had a starving man, what would he prefer to eat? A bowl of quinoa or a nice fatty T-bone steak, right? That's like, that seems pretty obvious that the T-bone steak would be superior in nutrition. So the next topic of the video is going to be talking more about the philosophy of meat and physiology.